BKRsport. It is nearly finals time. I'm so excited here. We've been through 23 rounds now. We've got round 24, round 25, and that is it. And then we get the knockouts, the finals. It's exciting. It's the point of the season now. Well, these next 2 weeks, for the most part, aren't exactly great. However, as you can see here on this video, we've got a top 8 run here. The wooden spoon hasn't been decided yet, unfortunately for my team. But, you know, hopefully the teams that they have to play, one of the teams actually is fighting for the 8 still, so hopefully, you know, they get the job done there. But the bottom hasn't been decided yet. The top has been decided, obviously. Still top 4 places to be decided, however. But today, guys, we're not going to be talking about that. We're going to be really analysing and focusing on this top 8 battle. Because as you can see here, we've got the Eels, the Roosters, the Rabbitohs, the Broncos, and the Raiders. Now, there's a lot going on the screen. There is a lot going on the screen right now. I know there's numbers here, numbers there, numbers everywhere, but we will go through it and I will help you to understand exactly what we're going to be seeing here in these next couple of weeks, because nothing is decided. All 5 of these teams can still be missing the 8. And obviously 4 out of 5 of these teams will make the 8, but all 5 of these teams still have that slight chance for the Eels, but still a chance of being knocked out. So look, it's going to be interesting. Let's get into it, guys. Obviously, if you are new around here, guys, and you love your rugby league, you love your Premier League, obviously we were doing some Premier League streams and Man United vs Liverpool this morning. We're absolutely smacking out Premier League action. We've got some rugby union action this weekend. We've got cricket, we've got the FIFA World Cup, Rugby League World Cup, a lot to come this year. So if you love your sport, this is the place to be. Hit that subscribe button, and obviously if you like this content, smack that thumbs up button so that I know you want to see more stuff like this. But let's get into today's video, which is the hunt for the 8, which is going to be an absolutely enthralling race. Now let's go through where they are first before we go into how many points they've got, the points differential, and also their run home. So in 5th place, you have the Eels there, who have 30 points and a plus 64 point differential. So looking at the point differential there, not unbelievable. It's probably good enough, but not unbelievable there with that plus 64. The 30 points, though, is the big marker there. However, as you're about to see, they're actually going to take on one of these teams in this little battle this week. So 30 points and a plus 64 points differential. Number 6, we've got the Sydney Roosters. Obviously, a lot of people wrote them off halfway through the season. I kept banging in their drum saying they will make it. They're good enough to make it. They're a very good team. And currently, they're in 6th. Got a tough run home, but they've got 28 points, and they've got the best points differential out of all 5 of these teams with a plus 187. That obviously was massively assisted by beating the Tigers by about 70 points. I think it was 72-6 last weekend. That's why their points differential is just absolutely skyrocketed away from everybody else. So you don't need to think about points differential, Roosters fans, but you do have to consider the points and actually still getting a win. It is crucial. You need to win one of these next 2 games. The Rabbitohs are next. They're in 7th. They've got 28 points as well, but as the points differential for the Roosters there is plus 187, they're plus 130. Still very good, you know, still very good. If it wasn't for that big blowout win for the Roosters, more than likely the Rabbitohs would have been above the Roosters. They have a better points differential, but it was just such a significant blowout. So plus 130 for them. Then you go down to number 8. Brisbane Broncos. Now, they were obviously thought they were guaranteed a top 8 spot, and obviously, you know, had a chance at a top 4 spot at one stage not too long ago, realistically. Not too long ago, people were thinking they could still make the top 4. Obviously, that isn't to be. They're definitely not going to be making the top 4 right now, and they need to be just feeling like they're going to, you know, that lock up that 8 spot, because they are right on the precipice. They're on 28 points as well, so they're still in it by a definitive margin, but their points differential is plus 21. Now, that is the key thing you've got to be looking at here. That is scary for them. Nowhere close to Rabbitohs and Roosters. They're on their own in regards to that points differential, and it is a very vulnerable place to be there for the Brisbane Broncos. Then at number 9, the team currently missing the 8. Got off to a really bad start this season, but have really come home stronger. I wouldn't say really strong, especially after that weekend's game against the Knights. Came home strong in that game, though. But we've got the Raiders here from Canberra. They're on 26 points, which is 2 points short of obviously those 3 teams above them, and 4 points away from the Eels with 2 games to go, which means they still technically can catch the Eels there. But they've got a points differential of minus 25, which isn't great at all. They needed to beat the Knights by a decent margin, especially, you know, the Knights are 14th right now. They're not great this year at all. They should have really put a score past them. However, they had to actually fight from behind to come back and then win by about 2 points in the end, or 4 points in the end. I can't remember what it was. But the Raiders got the win there, came back. But the win might not be enough. You know, they really need to focus on that points differential of minus 25, because as we currently speak, with the Broncos being plus 21, you don't think about the points differential with the Raiders for the Rabbitohs and the Roosters, but with the Broncos having a vulnerable points differential of plus 21 and the Raiders having minus 25, they need to basically have a switcheroo of about, 15, 5, 5, 15, 47. 47 they need a switcheroo of in the next 2 games, which is absolutely entirely possible, especially when we get to the 2 games that both these teams do have. They need to not only expect the Broncos, if they were to overtake the Broncos, we need not only to expect and pray that the Broncos lose one of their 2 games and the Raiders win both of their games, that with those 2 games there and that 1 loss that they do have, that the Raiders would have to have that 47 point switcheroo. So yes, they're the only team that can kind of factor in points differential wise. Or you can look at the Eels that no one's talking about right now. No one's talking about it right now. There is no guarantee the Eels have made the 8. Just throw that out there. There is no guarantee the Eels have made the 8 yet. They've got a plus 64 points differential. If they are to lose their next 2 games by a decent enough margin, and they've got 2 good teams there, well, kind of, and then the Raiders win their 2 games by a big enough margin, then that means the Eels would actually drop to 9th position. So minus 25, plus 64, so 64, 74, 84, wait, how do we do this math? 64, 74, 84. They would need an 87 or 88 points differential swing in favour of the Raiders with their 2 wins. So they'd have to have 2 massive wins, and the Eels would have to lose considerably in both those games. And well, not really, like they could lose both games by 20 and the Raiders could win both games by 24-ish points against Manly and Tigers, and then you can see the Raiders actually go above them. So it's not completely out of it, but the reason why I've got it as green over there the reason why I've got it as green as the points for the Eels is because they're very likely to make it. It would need a massive fall off, and they would have to really capitulate towards the end of the season. Now let's have a look at the 2 remaining games for all these teams. The Eels play the Broncos and the Storms. Obviously the Broncos, they're fighting for an 8 spot. This is a massive game. It's at Suncorp this week. We'll be streaming it, so definitely be here for that game. It's going to be a massive stream. We're going to have a great time. And I tell you what, it's going to be absolutely huge because one of these teams will lock up their 8 race. Yeah, I'd say if the Broncos win that, they will lock it up, especially considering they have to travel. Yeah, they play the Dragons, and they should get that win against the Dragons there. But the Broncos, not an easy game there. Very big game there for the Parramatta Eels. And then the Storm. That's a big game because the Storm are still playing for that top 4 spot. They're in the 4 right now, but the Eels and Storm are both playing for that top 4 spot. There is still a potential that the points differential, they would need the Storm to lose both their games, but obviously they need to beat the Storm anyway. So they would have to hope that the Storm, who play the Roosters this week, lose, and then the Eels also win again. The 2 points below them now, so if the Eels are obviously were to win against the Storm, no, they can't have the points differential, so they have to hope the Storm lose to the Roosters and also beat the Eels beat them, and then they'll obviously make that top 4 over the Storm, which would be very scary for the team who comes in 8th position. I'd much prefer to play the Eels in the first week of finals than the Storm in Melbourne in a knockout, I'll tell you that right now. So yeah, Eels, positive position. There is an opportunity where they could fall all the way down to 9th. Very unlikely. Still a pretty high chance they could finish in 7th or 8th though, especially with that points differential of the Roosters and Rabbitohs. So yeah, that's the Eels there. The Roosters, obviously they play the Storm. That's a huge game this week. We will be streaming that game as well. Obviously, that's going to be absolutely massive here. And then they play the Rabbitohs. Now, I'm going to kind of collectively put the Roosters and Rabbitohs in together here. Roosters in 6th and Rabbitohs in 7th. They both have tough games. The Cowboys, they sit in 2nd right now. Let's assume, in a crazy world, that the Rabbitohs lose to the Cowboys and the Roosters lose to the Storm, and the Raiders win both their remaining games. Broncos also win a game. A game. That would mean that the Roosters and Rabbitohs in round 25, when they play each other, would be a knockout. That would mean whoever wins out of that Roosters and Rabbitohs game at the new stadium, Allianz Stadium, would be a knockout game. So let's just go over that again, guys. The Roosters and Rabbitohs. Let's assume they lose to the Storm, the Roosters, and the Rabbitohs lose to the Cowboys. The Broncos, they win their game against the Eels/Dragons. Or both Dragons. Both games, doesn't matter. They would then go to, let's go 30 points. The Raiders win both their games to go to 30 points. That's 2 points above both the Roosters and the Rabbitohs. That would mean that only one of those teams will be able to get to 30 points. And the draw would obviously benefit the Roosters. But only one of those teams will be able to get to 30 points and make the 8. So whoever wins that round 25 game would be the team that actually progress into the 8, and the other team gets knocked out. And that's obviously the historical, the cultural, the biggest rivalry in rugby league. Roosters Rabbitohs, Allianz Stadium. What a way to open up that stadium. That would be huge. That would be absolutely huge. We'd be starting finals literally 1 week early, which is crazy considering that last year's round 25 was just diabolical because all the teams had made it and blah, 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 blah. Right, so that's absolutely massive. But still, that would require the Raiders to win both of their games. Both of their games. Because the Raiders aren't going to be able to get up to that plus 130 points differential or the plus 187 points differential, and that's too big of a switcheroo for the Raiders to actually overtake. So the Raiders would be required to beat both Manly and the Tigers, and the Roosters and Rabbitohs both would have to lose the Storm and Cowboys this week for that scenario to play out. However, if they both were to win this week, they would be locked off into the 8. They would be. It's just fact. If the Roosters and Rabbitohs both beat the Storm and the Cowboys this week, they're locked off in the 8. Still chance, obviously, to jump up to 5th or go down to 8th, but you'd assume that they'd be in the 6 or 7, which means they could even play each other in the knockout finals the week after as well, which is wild. So that's the Rabbitohs and Roosters done there. Pretty low. It's actually very hard to predict if they have that battle. Maybe one of those two teams plays and wins this week. I don't know. We'll see in my tipping video that comes out probably tomorrow. Yeah, that's a difficult one to predict. Now we go to the Broncos here, and they sit in 8. Now they're in a very precarious position. They play Parramatta, who's playing for that top 4 spot. Parramatta coming off a very big win. They're Parramatta though. You know, they can have a big win, big loss. It is what it is. Broncos, they looked... Who did they play again? Who did the Broncos play again? And they got absolutely slapped. By the Storm, that's right. They lost 60-12 to the Storm, while the Eels beat the Bulldogs 42-6. That's a very difficult game there for the Broncos. Now, the last time these two teams played, obviously we did see the Broncos win relatively considerably. But this is obviously finals now. Eels, as a team, collectively, I know they're a bit of a meme and a joke when it comes to finals, that they are, but they have more experience in finals than the Broncos do. Broncos, maybe 10 years ago, would have had more experience, but this team now is a very fresh team. Adam Reynolds is there, also doesn't have a great track record in finals, grand finals specifically, or preliminary finals specifically, or preliminary and grand final, but the Broncos have faltered at the wrong time. They're starting to really slow it down. Well, they're not starting, they've already started slowing down at the really wrong time. They peaked way too early, and now they're on the fall. So, the scary thing for them here is if they, because I would assume they beat the Dragons. I would assume they beat the Dragons who aren't playing for anything except pride. Let's assume they lose to the Eels. And let's assume they lose by 14 points, 12 points, 10 points. We'll go 12 points, just 1 to 12, but still convincingly enough. That would then take the Broncos to +9. The Raiders, we're assuming that they win both their games, because this is realistically the only way. Actually, no. Yeah, they would still have to win both their games, unless the Broncos lose both against the Dragons and Eels, which is still entirely possible, but I don't think it happens. But the Broncos could lose both their games, Raiders could win both their games, and they would automatically jump them. Anyway, we wouldn't have to think about the points differential. But going into the points differential here, if the Broncos can win one game, forces Raiders to win both their games, which is entirely possible, and likely, and probable, the Eels Eels win by 12, takes the Broncos down to +9, and then the Raiders, they would have to have a 25, 35, a 45 points in collectively win over the Raiders, over the Manly and Tigers. But then the Broncos obviously play the Dragons, but it comes down to the fact that if this, it gets confusing. This is why I'm doing this video, because it can get quite confusing right now. There are a lot of scenarios that can still play out here. There is a lot of scenarios that can still play out here. So the Raiders can absolutely still, they needed to win that game against the Knights by a lot more if they wanted points differential for me. I really think so. I think they need to really, really crush the Tigers or Manly in a game by 50 odd points, which is possible. But then again, shaky. I think they needed that for the points differential. I think they kind of do need to rely on the Broncos losing both their games, which I don't completely discredit. However, I think that the Broncos probably have enough in them to at least win one of those games, and could easily also win both those games too, knowing what Parramatta's like. So yeah, that's the hunt for the 8, guys. Obviously, let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are, who you think will make the 8. It does get a bit confusing, obviously. Like I said, there's a lot of numbers on the screen right now. There's a lot of scenarios that can play out. Like I said, the Eels can still miss if everything goes to plan for all those other teams. Actually, one last thing here, just to clarify, because the Roosters and Rabbitohs do play each other, right? So let's, because that means that obviously the Eels are probably thinking that they've locked up a spot. They haven't, right? So just to clarify, because I just realised I forgot to mention this before. Let's assume the Roosters and Rabbitohs, Roosters win this week against the Storm, Rabbitohs lose against the Cowboys, and the week after, the Rabbitohs beat the Roosters. That would mean they're both on 30 points. The points differential there of the Eels is well and truly worse than theirs, and we'd have to assume that the Eels lose both to the Broncos and the Storm. That would then send them to, at minimum, 7th. Now, let's go to the Broncos, and let's say that obviously they've got that win against the Eels, so they go 30, and let's say that they go and win that game against the Dragons. Also, that points differential between the Broncos and Eels isn't too far off there. And then they play the Dragons, and let's say, like I said, Eels lose to Storm, Broncos win both their games. That would send them to 32 points, which will put them into 5th place. And then the Raiders, obviously doing the switcheroo in regards to points differential, if they got a very, very significant run home victories in their games, then the Eels can still finish into 9th place. If I'm doing the math wrong, please let me know in the comment section. I don't believe I am, but yes, it's still possible. It would take a lot of scenarios for the Eels to drop out, but knowing what Parramatta's like, it's still possible. It's still possible. But guys, like I said, smack that thumbs up button. I appreciate you as usual. Obviously, we've got a massive weekend of streaming here. Hit that subscribe button if you love sport, if you love rugby league, Premier League, football, cricket, rugby union, everything. We've also got BKRsport USA starting up next week for the NFL. That link is in the description. You can go and subscribe to the second channel there for the American content, NFL, NBA, a little bit of baseball sprinkled in there as well. But yeah, like I said, I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. See ya.